What the fuck?
Must protect Jenny.
You're suffering a major malfunction here, man. That just...
Quiet.
We are talking about the low-budget science fiction AI movie Automation. This one is directed by Garrow Ctn, and this one stars Elissa Dowling, Sadie Katz, and Sarah French. Sarah French and Elissa Dowling actually watched a movie, both of those ladies, in recently called Rootwood, and here they are again teaming up in Automation. So what's the story? Well, we've got this kind of somewhat in the future, and we have this world where the workforce is being replaced by robots. Now, obviously, this is a very real fear for sort of going forward, and obviously that's lent itself to science fiction in the past, such as things like the Terminator. In this particular case, we have some type of kind of warehouse or kind of factory, really. And there is one robot that is currently there, which is essentially been there as a kind of a prototype. Now, originally this was actually used as a military robot, where it's kind of repurposed to ultimately use in kind of like just manufacturing and things like this. And it really focuses on Elissa Downing's character, who has this kind of almost like a friendly bond with the robot, and ultimately there's a kind of a new model which is coming out, and they kind of want to replace the old one, and ultimately replace all of the kind of the human staff as well. So they all kind of get told they're going to get laid off, and the plan is to deactivate this kind of older model of robot and replace him with kind of a newer one, but not before his kind of like all of what he's learnt is downloaded. Now, this robot gets wind of that and decides he doesn't want to be deactivated, and basically goes on a kind of killing rampage. So that is your kind of story, very kind of brief synopsis here. So what do we think about Automation? Well, so the plot is very easy to follow. Let's just say, I mean, it's a good and a bad thing. You're not going to get lost in any kind of like ill-explained ideas here. It's a very kind of simple plot. So it's one of these kind of films you could just kind of put on and have it in the background and not kind of worry too much about it, because it's not a particularly deep movie. So it's perfect for a kind of just a kind of like a quick watch while you're doing something, I suppose. I actually kind of quite like the design of Auto himself. I mean, on closer inspection, you can see that it's kind of like clearly kind of like polystyrene style kind of like robot plating and stuff like that, and you know, where you can see it kind of fold and things. But nonetheless, I thought it was quite a kind of a fairly kind of neat design. I have seen some critiques for it, and yeah, it does just look like a guy with kind of like plating on ultimately. But I thought nonetheless it still looks like a pretty cool looking design, if you ask me. I mean, maybe not particularly suited for manufacturing work, I'll be honest. I think one thing this movie does do in its favour is it taps into the kind of the very real fear of kind of the workforce being replaced by robotics, and we are sort of seeing that, as I've mentioned, already in today's age, and obviously going forward we sort of see that prospect becoming more and more real. And of course, then there is that kind of that fear that one day our own creators will turn against us, and ultimately that's realised here. One thing I did kind of appreciate, I felt here, was there is an attempt at least to have some sort of nuance with some of the characters. So we have our kind of corporate bigwigs, and it would be easy to kind of make them evil corporate bigwigs with no kind of like emotion, but that is kind of explored, and they do kind of, there's a few lines in regards to the dialogue sort of saying that, you know, who are the real robots here, who's kind of the really one, you know, thinking about humanity and things like that. And in a way, our kind of our female executive, played by Sadie Katz, you know, again, she's given some type of at least some redeeming qualities and things, and our kind of our main boss as well. He seemed like a genuinely kind of nice guy, just kind of going all the time. So I appreciated there's not going for the easy route of having the typical kind of corporate bad guys, although there is an element of that with one of the characters. But there was at least an attempt here to have somewhat of a kind of a nuanced character. However, what doesn't work with this movie, so I'm going to say I think the acting is a little poor here, if I'm honest, pretty much across the board. The acting from certainly our main character isn't particularly compelling. And there is a couple of scenes where I thought they should do a good job, but for the most part, I just didn't feel there was really a lot kind of really going on. People felt like they were kind of just more or less kind of doing in their sleeve. And there's certain sort of smaller parts where I felt there's a lot of overacting in the sort of smaller roles, which only have kind of like a couple of scenes, some sort of disgruntled employees and things like that, really kind of like ham it up. And ultimately, the story is very slight. I mean, it's the movie doesn't really get going until kind of like the second half, and I felt it needed a little bit more going on in plot-wise, because the story is so slight. Although it doesn't really, like I said, you can kind of watch it and almost only pay half attention to still get it. The problem is, if you want to truly get invested, I feel you needed a little bit more. And maybe would have had a little bit more kind of focus on maybe its military past. We do see a couple of kind of flashback scenes which I sort of appreciated, but I felt a better use of time would be maybe to kind of build out the world a little bit, or have a little bit more world building, or maybe introduce some type of kind of like B plot, because I don't feel the plot necessarily is enough to kind of stretch the whole film. And even when we kind of get our robot on the kind of the rampage, because there's little else going on in the movie, your kind of interest starts to wane when it's more or less the same thing for the second half of the film. So the first half of the film, it's you're waiting for the kind of the penny to drop, and when it does, you feel it's all kind of more or less the same in the second half. So it's okay. I think it's okay for a kind of a watch. If you like kind of like AI on the kind of the rampage, I don't think it kind of like breaks down any kind of like barriers in regards to new ideas, new special effects, or any kind of particularly cool designs. I think the acting here is a mixed bag. Kind of like workmanlike at best, really, and kind of and in some instances a little bit overacting. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. I think it's okay. It's just, it's not going to kind of like bust your balls or anything, but it's just an average kind of low-budget sci-fi movie that is perfectly okay, just for something to kind of pop on if you like a bit of a low-budget sci-fi B-movie action, but it's not going to blow your socks off. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing it next time. Bye for now.